Hi Don, got your dad's knife in the post this morning. I'll put the sheath to one side for now. That could do with some leather treatment, but that should be fine actually, there's nothing wrong with it at all. I'll put a bit of leather treatment on just to try and preserve the leather, but apart from that it can stay as is. The knife itself, I've taken the tape from around the handles, and the handle scales themselves, very little wrong with them really. They could go up back on if you wanted. They're not a very good match in terms of material because I think they're factory made, so they just got them out of a box of handles. But you know, we could put those on to preserve the originality. Or there's about 3 million different woods that you might like instead. And if we keep the original handles, then the plan I suppose would be to put a brass bolster on somewhere there and link those two together. So you've got the original handles with the brass bolster fixed to the blade. And options if you want different handle material is that you could take the new handle all the way up to there and not have a bolster if you wanted, or you could have a bolster or you could go with the brass bolster instead. Have quite a shorter handle. So wood on its own, or wood with brass bolster. If we're going to replace the handles, if we're keeping them, then we can put some brass up on there like that. Or anything else, to be honest, if you want antler or a different wood or anything you like really, just to fill that gap where the brass bolster used to be. So as far as wood goes, if you want to replace the handles, as I say, they would be nicer, but they would be not as original. We've got all sorts of things. That's olive wood, and we've got the tops of some old whiskey barrels. We've got walnut, I think that is. We've got bog oak, brown and black bog oak. I've got a big box full of God knows what. That's just a very small selection of what we can provide, what I can provide. If you just give us an idea of the colour that you want. You know, I think these are just a bog standard mahogany, which I've got some somewhere. That'll be a decent match for the original ones. Entirely up to yourself. Now, the only reason they were taped on is because the original cutler's rivets were bust. And so the taper just kept the handles on the knife all these years. Now I would replace those cutler's rivets with something a bit more substantial, either through pins or what's called loveless bolts. Bear with me a second, I'll find one. Here we go. So loveless bolts, invented by a guy called Jim Loveless, an American knife maker. They go through there, like I've got some carbide drill bits so I can drill out the original holes to suit, through there into the original handles, and then those spacers screw in effectively. So instead of just a simple pin going all the way through, you've got like a mechanical fixing as well. It's like a round, flat, not undoable nut and bolt on either side. So that's letting one side of the handle, that's letting the other side of the handle. You screw them together with some epoxy resin, and that keeps the handles fixed forever and a day. Now, the knife itself depends on how originally you want to keep it, really. And when I saw it, my immediate reaction was, can I stick it in the heat treatment oven, warm it up and straighten it? If I try to straighten it cold, there's a chance it'll snap. I know you said you were happy to not have it straightened, but I'm not happy to not straighten it. I really want to straighten it because I think it will make it usable then. It's not usable as it stands. Risks with straightening in the heat treatment, there aren't any really, I suppose. We might lose a little bit of the hardness of the steel, but I don't think it's particularly sensitive to that. It'll just be a bog standard carbon steel by the looks of it that we use all the time. Certainly all of this burr here and this fold over where it's been hit with a lump hammer, as you say, we can take all that off and round the spine off so it looks like none of that was ever there. I think the original shape looks like a skinning knife to me. That's what it looks like. That original sort of curve there is not too damaged actually. We can maintain that swoop up to the point. The original sort of skinning head, that drop point if you like, that can all stay the same. And if you want to leave the patina on here, we can, or we can try and clean some of that off. I think I would err on just leaving that, not grinding it shiny or anything daft. We'll do that if you want. But to make it obvious this thing's had a bit of life, it's just get rid of the big horrible burrs, try and straighten it up. The heat treatment might put a bit more texture into the blade because it's going to have to get red hot and then be quenched again when it's straight. but I will do my best to minimise that. We've got some sort of, we've got some stainless steel foil packets to sit it in while it's in the heat treatment oven to stop the oxygen getting at it. So I've just given this a bit of a clean up with a brass brush and some WD-40 just to get the mud out and stuff, so I have a proper look. I can't see a maker's name on it. I don't know whether you know anything of the history of it, but sometimes these have maker's names, sometimes they don't. But there you go. I don't know, I quite like doing this kind of stuff. And sort of £100 I'll see it right, I think. Especially if we retain the original handles and other bits. The knife itself, the working on the blade, that shouldn't take very long once it's straight, especially if we're just going to keep this patina in here. I'll just polish it up a little bit, but I don't want to get rid of all the dinks and bangs out of it, make it look sterile. I want to keep some of that history in it. So, plan, grind these off, these burrs. There's also one on the back end here where it's been hit with a hammer. I can round that off again. In the heat treatment oven, straighten it between two big aluminium plates as it cools. If it's cooled fast enough and it's hard, that'll do. Then I'll temper it in the oven for an hour or so just to relieve any stresses in the steel. And check the hardness. If it's hard enough at that stage, it's fine. If it's not, I might have to put it through a heat treatment cycle. Once it's straight, we'll see. And then it's a matter of either refitting these things, it's upside down, it's the wrong one, or making some new handles. But it's not complicated, and it's the kind of thing that I would enjoy doing, to be honest. So, decision time. Do you want to keep the original handles, or do you want some new handles? If you want some new handles, what kind of materials do you want? If you're going for new handles, do you want a brass bolster, or do you want the new handle to go all the way up to the ricasso, I suppose it's called on a knife, to where the blade starts, basically? I tend to use one piece of wood quite a lot. Just finding it. This one, for instance, it's just one piece of wood. It's got no separate bolster on it, and that's bog oak with some red liners. And you can go, you know, if we were going to pimp this up, which I don't think is the plan, it's just to sort of preserve what's there for posterity. We could put liners in it and fancy pins and stuff in it, and lanyard holes if you want one of them, so you can put a bit of string on the end. But I don't think that's the point, is it? So we can get as fancy as you like, but I suggest we don't. I suggest we retain some of the patina and history of it. Well, let me know what you think, and if you get back to me today, actually, I can make a start on it, but don't worry about it. It's no rush. Cheers, Don. Ta-ra.